Welcome, everyone. It's the Crypto Lark. Very excited to have the chance to speak today with Nick from Harmony. Nick, how's it going?
Hey guys, wonderful to be here. Thanks for hosting Crypto Lark. Really excited to be on the show today.
Absolute pleasure to have you on. Harmony is something that's been on my radar for a very long time, so it's super exciting to see the project really starting to come to fruition and for things to be moving
Mm,
forward. And we're going to be diving into all the stuff that Harmony is doing. But before we do that, just a quick disclaimer for everyone in the audience to do your own research as always on any project. There is an ongoing lottery right now on Binance as the IEO is underway. So if you want more details on that, go over and check it out on Binance. And if you are in an excluded country for the IEO, or if you miss out on the IEO, watch out for it to come on the secondary markets here in the near future. And also a massive thank you to the team at Harmony for supporting the channel by sponsoring today's video. Now, Nick, what we need is the elevator pitch. Give us the high
all
level.
right,
What are you guys doing?
perfect. Yeah, thank you for the intro. So Harmony is the world's first deep sharded blockchain. And deep sharding, people are probably familiar with the term sharding. If they're not, sharding is a way to parallelize the network. So you can have multiple blockchains running side by side and communicating together. And that way you can have a blockchain that scales, to higher throughput. But deep sharding is this concept that, sharding alone provides scalability, but we need to take the engineering even further, deeper into the stack if we're trying to optimize for other metrics like finality and also cost. So we do deep sharding, which is that we also look at layer zero and as well as the layer one consensus, layer zero being the networking stack, and integrate them together to optimize all those pieces. And Harmony is a team of 7 engineers from Apple, Google, Amazon, as well as 2 PhDs. Our founder, Stephen, is a serial entrepreneur, and his previous startup was acquired by Apple. And so this is his next foray. And the team also has graduates from CMU, UPenn, Stanford, Harvard. So we really put together an all-star team here. And our vision is to scale trust to billions of people. We all recognize that blockchain is fundamentally paradigm changing technology with so many disruptive use cases. But we need a blockchain that's able to scale and able to be fast in terms of latency and low cost in order for a lot of those applications to really reach mass adoption and to make sense. So Harmony is trying to use deep sharding to scale that trust and really realize the potential of blockchain.
So really, it's about taking the sharding technology to the next level. And we see right now most of the major blockchains are at least exploring it, if not trying to implement some version of sharding. But just to
Mhm.
give the people in the audience a little something, I guess, quantitative to hold on to. I mean, what are we talking about here in terms of, transactions per second? What kind of latency are we talking about?
Mm. That's perfect. Well, it's tricky when you talk about sharding. I think most people talk about aggregate, network throughput, right? But the whole idea about sharding is that you can add more throughput by adding more nodes and more shards. So we did a large testnet last year as a proof of concept, where we launched about 40,000 nodes. I think we did about 200 shards, and the overall throughput was 118,000 TPS. So that was just to validate, our core assumptions of how much we can scale the protocol. When we launch, now we're more feature complete, and we'll probably do fewer shards because we don't need 118,000 transactions per second. But so I don't have a concrete number for you, but we should be doing some sort of tests soon to sort of find out the per shard throughput, because that's the way
Hmm.
to think about it in a sharded blockchain. It's not about, oh, what's the total TPS? It's more about, okay, per shard, how many transactions per second can you run? And how many nodes are in each shard? So there's so many metrics that kind of affect it all that it's difficult to kind of just give one blanket TPS. But I would say that comfortably we should be able to do about 1,000 TPS per shard. And our time to finality, I would say, is anywhere between 5 and 10 seconds. But again, we should get more concrete details soon when we do more testing.
Very, very cool. And yeah, obviously it's always a bit of a tricky metric, but I think that really just gets that idea across that it's a scalable network, in that as the network
Yes,
grows, you
exactly.
can keep putting more shards in, more nodes in, and continue to scale the network as required. You're not kind of stuck
Exactly.
to like, well, we're on this old outdated proof of work kind of thing. And well, proof of work's been great for security and all that stuff, but it's obviously shown its massive limitations when it comes down to it.
Exactly.
Now,
Yeah.
there are a couple of different projects working right now on sharding, and I think you gave a really good explanation of what this more advanced sort of deep sharding is. But can you just kind of give us the base sort of comparison of how you would compare with what you're doing in terms of sharding versus what Zilliqa, who's probably one of the better examples right now of a blockchain running sharding, and of course Ethereum is also exploring sharding. So you can't break down how you stand out from those guys.
Sure. So one of the big differences between us and Zilliqa, first of all, is that we're proof of stake. They use proof of work, and proof of stake allows us to be hit a much lower cost price point per transaction, which I think is very important for the feasibility of a lot of use cases. And secondly, Zilliqa, as far as I know, only does transaction sharding, not state sharding. So what that means is that the beacon chain actually has to hold the full state of the whole network and validate every transaction. So while you can get some speed up and some parallelization by Zilliqa's approach, you will also run into those bottlenecks because the beacon chain itself is having to run sort of a global network view.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in our approach, actually, it's full state sharding, meaning that not just the transaction verification, but also even the storage of the state is parallelized among all the shards. So that's the difference, one of the core differences between us and Zilliqa. And then something like ETH 2.0, actually, there's a lot of parallels between our two designs. I think we make some different design decisions when it comes to our randomness generation, and also in the way in which we select validators.
Mm-hmm.
And so sort of the proof of stake, there's some small differences there. But again, one of the biggest differences between us and ETH 2.0 is our integration, our vertical integration focus, the deep sharding that I was talking about, that enables us to squeeze that extra performance. I also think we'll be launching a live network in June. So it'll be a throttled mainnet launch. So it won't be full feature complete. It won't be completely enabled, but we're getting the ball rolling, I think, significantly faster than the ETH 2.0 team. And so those are some of the key differences between us and the competitors.
Very cool. And so that throttled mainnet, when it comes out, what features will not be included, and when will we see those other features rolled out?
So it's sort of more like so the way our team comes from a software engineering background. So we think of things in terms of a soft rollout. So this throttled mainnet is it's almost like between a testnet and a mainnet, in that there will be block rewards, so people will be incentivized to participate, but it won't be, it won't have token transfers. It won't be completely live, so that we can still kind of test the network. It's sort of more of
Mm-hmm.
like a live incentivized testing, similar to game of stakes. So that's the way to think about it. But again, going back to software development, it's very hard to, if you put everything into one monolithic launch like ETH 2.0 is, and I think it becomes hard to ever know when you're ready
Mm-hmm.
and feature complete. So we'd rather get something out the door and have it be somewhat live and interacted with and used, and that way we'll converge faster on the final product. We don't want to be like holding back because we're stuck to perfection. Obviously, you need to be a perfectionist when it comes to blockchain because you're dealing with real money, real value. But we want to utilize sort of that ongoing development
Mm-hmm.
sort of mentality, and I think that's also something that really sets us apart from other teams. Is that we're more of an engineering team. It's not about. I mean, obviously, we do a lot of research and we have PhDs and we're very deep in all the latest techniques. But at the end of the day, we think of this as an engineering problem, implementation problem, and that's where we leverage our expertise from working at Google, Amazon, Apple, where we've had experience rolling out large scale infrastructure and software.
Yeah, very, very cool. Now, I wanted to explore this idea of the distributed randomness generation. Can you kind of break down what that is and how it plays a factor in the Harmony protocol?
Sure. So the distributed random generation is a really key feature for sharding. So in any sharded protocol, one of the hardest things is selecting a random shard sort of cohort. If you don't select it randomly, then you have the chance of malicious people all colluding and going into one shard, and then corrupting that shard.
Mm-hmm.
So doing it randomly, selecting these committees randomly is really, really key for security. And the issue with a lot of the randomness generation protocols is that they can be really slow. They can take multiple rounds and people can interrupt them. And so we tried to create one that's faster, but also maintains the security. And so what we've done is we've combined this two different primitives. One is the VRF and the other is the VDF. The VRF is a verifiable random function and the VDF is a verifiable delay function. And essentially, a VRF creates a random pre-image that is then fed into the delay function. And then the final output of the delay function is the end randomness. And so what that enables us to do is, normally a VRF can be easily manipulated, but because the VRF adds some delay, it's hard for the leader to know how he should choose the VRF inputs to manipulate the end randomness. So that's our innovation, at least on the random generation aspect, and it's really key for the security of the protocol.
Now, one big thing that is being talked about a lot at the moment, of course, is compatibility and interoperability between blockchains. So are you guys running the Ethereum virtual machine in Harmony, or will there be another way in which you'll be compatible with all those developers and dapps who are currently building, on Ethereum or building in Solidity?
This is a great question. So we have chosen to be fully EVM backwards compatible. Because we recognize that a lot of the ecosystem has been using EVM, and there's a lot of momentum in the ecosystem there. And even a lot of developers who are building now, they may not have even launched, but they've been training themselves in Solidity. So there's a whole sort of ecosystem of education. There's even, so many Stack Exchange posts, and there's sort of developer support and momentum around Ethereum EVM and Solidity. So we want to kind of leverage that. Last thing we want to do is create our own, programming language that everyone has to onboard from scratch. I think that'll be a nightmare for most people. And so, yeah, EVM compatibility is a really big part, and we want to make it as easy as possible for existing dApps to port over. They will have to make some small changes because there are some slight differences using a sharded protocol like ours, but for the most part, it should be relatively frictionless.
Nice. Yeah, it's super important to meet developers where they are, and I've seen a lot of blockchains go with, "We're launching our own language." Like, well,
I know,
I get why you're doing that. I understand, and sometimes there's good reasoning behind it, but at the same time, you're kind of building yourself a garden, where you have to have that secret password, which in this situation is, of course, that different programming language in order to get in and, play in the garden, so to speak. And whereas Solidity has been such a big part for its, strengths and weaknesses, it is what it is. And it's a big part of the blockchain ecosystem.
Yeah. And in the future, I think probably we'll end up using, the industry will probably migrate to other virtual machines like, Wasm or others actually. And we'll probably follow along those trends as well. But EVM, because it has the momentum now, is the place to be.
Now, one thing in your roadmap is you guys are going to be exploring ZK snarks, so looking to implement privacy features coming in the future. Now, what was it about ZK snarks that got you to choose that over Mimblewimble, or to choose that over ring signatures, for example?
So this is a really good question. So I wouldn't say focus only on snarks. It could be starks. All the zero knowledge stuff is extremely interesting and important in many different aspects, right? You can even leverage it for scaling. You can use it to scale decentralized exchanges. I think 0x is working on things like that. But the key part of zero knowledge is that we think that privacy will be actually very important for mainstream adoption. And enterprises don't want to use a blockchain where everything is exposed,
Hmm.
right? And we're seeing a lot of privacy being a key feature, even for big platforms like Facebook and Google. So we want to be ahead of that trend and really support that next movement. And zero knowledge is really the platform on which that's going to happen.
Yeah, ZK Snarks has been, or zero knowledge cryptography has been very important in the space, and
Yeah,
it's you see a lot of the key blockchains adopting that technology. I think it says
yeah.
just everything you need to know about the power of zero knowledge cryptography.
Exactly. And let me add a quick thing too. I think so. One of the long-term visions of Harmony is we want to build a platform for data sharing. We want to create open infrastructure for the world's data. And zero knowledge will also be a very important aspect of that. Zero knowledge it can enable you to share your data without revealing it. And I think that will become really valuable for machine learning and all these various applications that are where their data is the key ingredient. And so we want Harmony to be ahead of that trend and enable that future. A lot of us actually come from an AI and machine learning background. And what motivated me to actually get into blockchain was I saw this potential for blockchain to be a more open infrastructure for data. So that's a big part of zero knowledge for us as well.
And that's an amazing vision because, as we see right now, the current way the internet works, especially when it comes to our data, it's a broken model, and it's a model that's in
Absolutely,
desperate need of fixing. And
absolutely.
when you take the whole picture in here, so I mean, we've got massive ability for the blockchain to scale, and you think of all that data that goes every second across the internet, and all that personal data which is monetizable, for example, or
Mm-hmm,
personal
mm-hmm.
data which you simply may not want to expose, except perhaps in certain situations, and you realize you need massive scalability to make this happen, as well as privacy, which is exactly what you guys are doing.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's kind of ironic because a lot of our team came from Google and Apple and Amazon, a lot of the big tech companies. But what really motivates us actually is to create an alternative. We kind of want to be the anti-Google, the anti-Facebook. We want to flip that business model on its head, and rather than have an extractive information economy that's also exploiting your privacy. We want it to maintain privacy and actually give the user back value.
Hmm.
We think data can actually be a kind of universal basic income for people. I don't know if it will be able to support their entire lifestyle. I think that's doubtful, at least for now. But at least it can, rather than you pouring time into an application like Facebook and getting nothing in return, you should be able to monetize your own data and see the benefit yourself.
That's right, or at least take charge of your data, right? In terms of maybe I don't want to. I'm good. I'm good on the
Exactly.
$5 a month or whatever for my data. I'm just going to keep it private, and you can have that option too because you're actually in control of your data now.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
I think one thing I just want to point about the zero knowledge cryptography is that essentially what it could allow is for you to provide a positive or a negative response to something without having to reveal all your data. So just as you can tell me if this analogy is kind of spot on or not, or if it needs a little bit of modification, but imagine I go into, buy a bottle of wine and I don't want to
Hmm.
give my passport over because it's got my all this other stuff in it that they don't need to know. All they need to know is whether or not I'm of the legal age to buy that in a
Hmm.
verifiable way. And
Hmm.
so that technology can basically give the proof that yes, this person is of the verifiable age without having to expose my other private details to them. Is that kind of how it would work?
Yeah, that's sort of one of the more basic use cases where you can do something like a range proof and say, okay, this value is greater than this lower bound, right? So that'd be a way of checking your age. Or you could do something like a range proof on let's say someone's salary if you're trying to figure out whether they're eligible for financial aid.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they don't want to tell you and like give you their whole financial statement, but you can do a zero knowledge proof saying, "Hey, I qualify." So those are just some very basic. I mean, I think this is a whole treasure trove of new applications and new ways that it'll be applied. And so we're really excited to enable that future.
Absolutely. It's things that we're not even conceptualizing yet. I mean, if you were to go back a few years and ask Vitalik, well, hey, what did you think was going to happen with Ethereum?
Yeah,
you can't imagine all the use cases that are going to start to come out of things, and what Harmony is enabling with the technology. People will come up with use cases in a few years, like, that's brilliant. Why didn't we think of that? But that's awesome. And
exactly.
that's what technology is about. It's about enabling people to take these tools that you're giving them and get out there and build something with it.
Exactly. Yeah, we're kind of the tool builder, the platform builder, and it's the developers that come and build on top of us and build with us that actually create that next wave and that exponential value that we're all trying to unlock as a blockchain community.
And now, can you tell us about any projects or partners that you have currently? I mean, who's currently looking to build on Harmony? Have you got some people who are going to be the first ones out the door that you can let us know about, or some partners then the use cases that they're looking at with Harmony?
Yeah, definitely. So we have a very wide range of different partners. Not all of them are yet public, but we will be releasing them soon. We have ones from everything from the medical industry. So, for example, one is tracking drugs, the supply chain of
Mm-hmm.
pharmaceuticals, and they're actually running an FDA approved pilot
Ooh.
for that. So it's actually pretty serious. It's interesting that even the big organizations are getting behind this. We also have ones more in the tokenized security type of space, and decentralized exchanges. We have stable coins. We have obviously a lot of gaming partners. I can dive into more specifics, and yeah, so essentially we have a whole kind of broad ecosystem, and we're trying to support as many different use cases as possible. And the main feedback that we've gotten from these DI developers is they're really keen for a platform that is cheaper. A lot of them, it's just not feasible for them to pay 30 cents per transaction. They
Mm-hmm.
need something much lower. We also have partners in the IoT space, IoT sensors. I think Harmony is a really good platform for that, again, because we have high throughput and low cost. So you can actually have these sensors interacting with the blockchain and not be worried about exploding prices and costs. So I don't know. I can dive into some more specifics if you want, if any of those are interesting to you.
Yeah, maybe just as an example, maybe we can explore the gaming one a little bit and just kind of tell us what they're looking at and how they're planning to use the technology in order to enable their gaming platform or games, whatever it might be.
Yeah, so we're partnering with a company called Animoca. They're out of Hong Kong, and they do a lot of mobile game development.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually one of the gaming studios that they're closely affiliated with is the gaming studio in which CryptoKitties was created.
Mm.
There's a lot of ties there, and they're very deep into the NFT space. And so one of the games that they're building is a game called Sandbox, which is it's similar to Minecraft, but you create these worlds, and you can create these items and these designs and sort of like patent them and tokenize them. And so it's all about user generated content and having the ability for users to create items in their world and trade them. So it's really exciting. And one of the things that, again, getting back to the cost thing, one of the things that was really a bummer for them on Ethereum is that every time you create a new NFT, I mean, there's different token standards that are coming out to try to drive the cost lower and make it more efficient. But on average, they're like, if you're going to create 1,000 items, it's going to cost you $300 just to mint them on the blockchain.
That's nuts.
So
That's not sustainable.
yeah, it's not that sustainable. So Harmony hopefully can really drive those costs lower and make it so that the value doesn't all drain out to the validators and the miners,
Mm-hmm.
and instead more of the value can stay on chain and go to the content creators and stay within the game ecosystem. So I think that's really one of the big advantages for them.
Now, one thing, you guys are doing a proof of stake blockchain, so I have to ask the question,
Hmm.
what are the staking details? Can you give us any sort of indication yet about what potential percentages of staking returns are going to be, how many you're going to need to put up to stake in order to be staking? Can anyone stake if I have 5 Harmony, or do I need to have a million Harmony, or whatever it might be?
Hmm. So I can't actually talk about the returns on staking, but I can say that we have we really would love more people to join our foundational node program, where you can be part of like the early network and be one of the nodes that helps us get running. We're also working with a lot of staking as a service partners to help build out that ecosystem and make sure that we're robust and still decentralized, but also facilitate staking for people who don't want to run their own node.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of the staking mechanics, we do what's called a thresholded proof of stake, meaning that there's no set amount of tokens that you need to stake to get a voting share. It has more to do with the total amount of people staking. It's you don't have to run a node for every voting share. Your voting shares may end up in the same shard. If they're in the same shard, then your node can vote. We'll just have 2 votes in that shard. So it's a way actually to reduce the total number of nodes that need to be operating in the network while maintaining the same level of security. So unfortunately, I can't talk too much about all the staking details in terms of the economics, because that's just we're not allowed to talk about that. But I encourage people. We really want to build out a diverse staking ecosystem and have a lot of people. One of the things we did is we designed it so you can run it on a very low resource node, so it's very cheap. You can maybe even run it on your laptop. So hopefully, people, even if they're have some technical background, can join the network their own and don't have to go through someone else.
Very, very cool. Now, the final question I have here for you today is, there's so many blockchains out there right now. There's so many
Mm-hmm.
who are going to be, EVM compatible and who have massive transactions per second and latency, low latencies and all this kind of stuff. What is your message to developers? What is your plan to get developers to choose Harmony over the competitors?
That's a really good question. So one of the main things is we're going to be launching an ecosystem fund, and we will be helping to put some seed money into projects that are looking for some support as they build. We think we've met so many fantastic teams, whether in the Bay Area or in Asia or wherever we've traveled, and we'd love to support them and help bring them into the ecosystem. I think on top of that, we've thought about doing some sort of incentive scheme whereby if you're a d.app developer and you create an application on Harmony and you're driving this many transactions, or you're driving this many daily active users, various metrics, we can reward you with Harmony tokens, sort of in accordance to the amount of traction that you're actually bringing us. So this is still very early, but it's an idea that we've thought about internally to incentivize that. But I think one of the things that really stands apart, and this may sound kind of soft, is that our team is really genuinely caring and compassionate. I think we're a very human oriented blockchain company, and I think people really sense that. And we've just really gotten really warm reception from people all over the world, and we're trying to build something more than just a blockchain. We're really
Mm-hmm.
trying to build a community, an international community, where we can all grow together and make the world a better place by using this technology as a new platform to empower everyone. So I hope that people resonate with our vision and want to come to us for that. And not just the fact that we have a fast and low cost blockchain, but because of what we want to create.
Having a vision is important. I think when you tell people this is our vision, this is what we want to do, there are a lot of people out there who will definitely resonate with that, and whether they are participating by running nodes, or they're building on top of it, or they're just part of the community in one way or another, you will get the right people coming through the door. And I think we're facing a lot of things globally that make people want to make the world a better place and to want to use technology to do
Absolutely.
that. So it's definitely very, very cool. Nick, thank you so much for coming on and telling me and telling everyone in the audience what you guys are doing over at Harmony. It's super interesting. And for everyone out there in the audience, there will be links down below to the website and to the social media channels, so you can go over there, engage with the community, and get some more information on what Harmony is doing. Thank you so much, Nick.
Honestly, CryptoLark, it's been fantastic. Thank you. You asked great questions. And to everyone, thank you for watching. And please check us out. Harmony.one is our website. We have active Discord community and a Telegram channel where you can come and ask us questions. So don't be shy. Jump in and get involved.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys.